Welcome back to our study of Genesis. Um, we've been going through Joseph's account. Um, it's a it's a quite it's a sad account when you see what the poor kid had to go through. But it's a great account when you see the faith that he had going through all this. It doesn't make any sense because he knows he's going to be the head of the family. He knows he's going to be a ruler at some point, but now he's in prison. So it just doesn't make sense to him. But Joseph does not complain to God. I'm sure he wonders, well, this don't seem right for my path, but God knows better. So in Genesis chapter 39, he was sold to slave traders, and that was detailed in chapter 37. He was young, the youngest of the brothers, preferred by Jacob, which is never a good story. His 10 other brothers despised him because of him being Jacob's favorite, and he revealed his dreams, and they said, "We're done. We're just going to get rid of this guy." So Joseph is 17 years old, which we know from Genesis 37:2, and let's pick it up there in verses 1 through 6, please.
Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of the master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house and all that he had put under his authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of the house and all that he had that the Lord blessed the Egyptian house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had to expect for the he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance.
So Joseph is in the household of Potiphar, one of the chief gurus there under Pharaoh, and he's basically in a strange land surrounded by strange people doing strange things. Okay, this is not your land of God, Lord loving people. It doesn't seem to distress him. Why? Well, because we read that several times that the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord made all things he did to prosper in his hand. Right? He knew that God was around him. God's grace was surrounding him. And Potiphar, who was one of Pharaoh's top people, saw this too. So much so that he gave and trusted everything that he had to Joseph. The scripture says that he trusted him so much so that he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Basically, the bread that was in front of him to eat, he knew he had that because he could see it. Everything else he didn't really keep track of because Joseph was keeping track of it. Right? So basically, he trusted Joseph with everything. So not only did Joseph feel secure in the Lord's presence, he had that peace that surpasses all understanding. But Potiphar and his whole household also saw that Joseph was being covered by God, that he was being blessed by God. So in an ugly land, in an ugly place, he was being blessed.
He was a slave of the household of Potiphar.
A slave of the household of Potiphar who immediately got put in charge, right? 39:7.
And it came to pass after these
You
things that
got
his
something?
master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph and she said, lie with me.
So enter Satan through Potiphar's wife, stage left. Joseph, being full of the Holy Spirit with his reverential fear of God, was indeed righteous. And being righteous among the unrighteous is something that the devil cannot stand. Okay? I'm going to have to get you to conform to these unrighteous people. I'm going to have you be like Lot. I'm going to have you be in charge of the front gate of these unrighteous people. But being righteous is not acceptable for Satan. He can't stand it. So he uses Potiphar's wife, who is morally bankrupt, to try and hit on Joseph and take him down from his righteous throne and get him to do something that's not godly. Okay. 8 and 9.
But he refused and said to his master's wife, look, my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no one greater in the house than I, nor has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?
So he's just speaking the truth in love. He's not saying, oh, you know what, I don't feel good today, or he's hiding from her, or he's beating around the bush, or he's flirting. No, he's just saying, I can't do this. Potiphar put me in charge of his household, and I'm in charge of everything, and my hands are to be kept off of you. You're not my property. It's not proper to do this. He does not beat around the bush at all, or play any games or anything, send mixed signals. He tells her the truth. And it's an honor for him to be entrusted with all that. And he's not going to break his oath to God of being righteous, and he's not going to break his oath to his master who's entrusted him with all this. He does not want to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He wants to stay away from it. 10, please.
So it was, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not heed her to lie with her or to be with her.
Day after day, it says. Right? So Satan's not going to give up that easily. And obviously, the Lord is allowing Satan to do this. Maybe as a lesson to Satan. Like the Job account. That was a lesson for Satan. No, you're not right. You can't break my righteous people because they're righteous. Right? So he's going to keep trying as long as God lets him to destroy the reputation of Joseph and people who walk with God. Oh, nothing better than to have a Ravi Zacharias get caught in something that blows away his whole ministry. There's nothing that makes Satan more happy. And it takes one mistake to ruin the reputation of a man who walks in God. And again, we're sinners. We're still sinners. It just, we're not sinners because we sin. We sin because we're sinners. And just because we're covered by the blood of Jesus Christ, we're still going to make mistakes. All right? That's why I pray over all of you and myself and my family to protect our reputations in Christ. Right? Because that's so crucial. And Joseph has this protection. As I've mentioned over and over, and it's worth mentioning over and over, Satan has 3 super tools in his arsenal. Get you with the lust of the eyes, get you with the lust of the flesh, or get you with the pride of life, to let you feel like you're like a god, that you can do things under your own power. That's the same three tools that he uses successfully. And so here, once again, he was trying. It says day after day. 11 through 15, please.
But it happened about this time when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that he caught him, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand, and fled and ran outside. And so it was, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of the house and spoke to them, saying, he has brought he has brought into us a Hebrew to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it happened, when he heard that I had lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside.
So, the title for that paragraph is Hell Has No Fury Like the Scorned Woman. Right? She was like day after day trying to break his will, trying to get him to sin, and he ran away. And so now she was so upset that she said, "Oh, that's it. That if I can't have him, no one can. And I'm going to tell him that he tried to do unjust to me." Right? And so, did they throw him in prison?
We're
Well,
about to
let's see.
find out, I think.
15, right?
16 through 20 is next.
Yeah.
15, they did not throw him in prison yet.
Okay. So go ahead.
Okay.
16 through 20.
16 through 20. So she kept his garment with her until her master came home. Then she spoke with the words like these, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me. And so it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment and fled outside. So it was, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, Your servant did to me after this manner, that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph's master took him, put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison."
All right. So there's no mention here of him put to death. Okay. We'll see a little bit later on. The butler and the baker will come into the account. And if you're accused of doing something brutal like that, it's immediate death. Okay, so
So you could say he's already being protected at this point for those days.
right, and a person doesn't turn evil overnight. Evil takes a lot of practice. You got to practice being evil and finding new ways of being evil, and Satan will help you. He'll help you perfect evil. So I'm assuming that this was not her first encounter of doing evil. Okay? And Potiphar is not an idiot. So I'm sure that he senses that she's got something to do with this. Right? Because he can tell character, and he knows that doesn't sound like Joseph. But he throws him into prison. Right?
Up till now, Joseph's kind of been like the golden goose once again, though. Just like back in the days of the of Joseph, his father, having good. I'm forgetting everybody's name. Esau and Isaac's life, and Esau and what's the other one? Sorry, Esau and
Jacob.
Jacob and Esau having good lives, and the people being around them being blessed due to their blessings from God. In this case, Potiphar's been pretty blessed. His household's been going great. Everything's been run really well. He knows he's got money and food on the table, and he recognizes that things have gone well since Joseph's been running the house. So he's feeling pretty good. Like, that things have been
And
going
not
well.
only that, but he's not put to death right away,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's kind of like he's being put into the royal prison. So right,
The
exactly.
captain of the guard is in charge of this prison? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Potiphar's in charge of this prison that he sends Joseph to. But let's read what happens to that being in charge thing in 21 through 23.
All right. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph hand all the prisoners who were in the prison, whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made prosper.
All right, so now Joseph's down, but he ain't out, right? So he gets thrown into Potiphar's prison, who's the head of the guard, the head of the prison, and immediately Joseph's put in charge of the prison. Okay, and not only that, but Scripture is kind of cool here. It says the keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority. Right? Why? Is because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. So this is the goose that laid the golden egg, just like you said, Justin. He's got blessing written all over him, and he's righteous in a land that is unrighteous, right? So this is Egypt is right. Was it King Artaxerxes?
Just
Who
repeat
was?
that real quick for just because we are recording. It's not on the mic what you just said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was just Pastor was just saying that repeats the fact that Potiphar probably had a sense on what was going on, because he identified that there was probably some. It was probably not Joseph's fault, right? Because he's all of a sudden being blessed, even now in prison. So by Potiphar's demand.
You know,
right?
it's an interesting relationship between what's going on in this land of unrighteous people and Joseph being the righteous one who keeps having good stuff happen to him because the Lord is watching over him and blessing him in everything that he does. The United States, for a long time, has been the kind of place where you could say, I accept what somebody says to me as truth a lot of times. Like you're handed the bill at the end of a stay at a fancy resort, and they say, sir, you've got a few extra charges on your account. It looks like you took a couple things from the minibar, you took a soda, your kids grabbed some nuts out of the cupboard, your wife went and had her hair done, you used a couple of movies, so you got to pay us an extra $150 or whatever at the end of your stay. And you say, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll cover the charges, right? Well, we accept that because we're in a land of a lot of people over the years who have been godly. A lot of the guys coming out of World War I and II, and they grew up a real strong Christian faith. And obviously that's the background of our country. And Charlie Kirk and others have been trying to get us back to that in a lot of ways, just like we are here at this church with Pastor and yourself, Tom. But it's becoming more and more that we're now in a culture of scammers.
Yep.
It's been brought to light that with AI and computers and lots of other just really simple scams that people can pull over one another, that you can't just trust when somebody says, oh, excuse me, sir, you owe another $100. Your kids got out of a cab last night and ruined the cab by throwing up and leaving food everywhere. And they've got a picture now. And the guy says, oh, man, oh, yeah, I guess I got to pay that bill. And it turns out there's an AI watermark down in the bottom of the picture.
Right.
There's always unjust people trying to scam you now. So it's not that you don't have that same level of trust anymore.
And it's also saturated with the lie in the United States.
Right.
We were founded one nation under God, indivisible.
Mm-hmm.
We left England because there was the Church of England that was not really a church. And so Protestants came over to America and said, here we're going to have freedom of religion. And the freedom of religion was freedom to worship God and Jesus Christ and Christianity. It was not freedom of a religion for all other religions.
Right.
It was for Christianity, freedom of religion.
And not to be persecuted or
and
hampered
not to
in
be
that
persecuted.
respect,
And if you
yeah.
did not go to church on Sunday, you were ostracized. That's what you did. And Sunday was a day of rest. Fast forward to 1970s, Sundays were no longer a day of rest. The blue laws were put aside. Now stores could be open on Sunday. Prior to that, they could not be open on Sunday.
Massachusetts, you could sell liquor on Sundays now. You could go to a bar. You could.
Yeah, none of that was allowed before 1970 because Sunday was a day to be with God. And now it's you can be with God on Sunday, but don't let it be the Jesus Christ God, because that's just too extreme. Your religion is too one-sided, my way or the highway, and that just doesn't fit into what we allow.
So I'm liking it to this. I guess I'm seeing a parallel to this place in Egypt now that Potiphar's in, that Joseph has now had to be immersed in.
Right.
This unrighteous group of people now that you can't trust what anybody has to say, and Joseph's the only one being protected, well, at least at the moment,
If we were
and taken care of.
if we were time frozen for 20 years and we woke up today, we would pinch ourselves and slap ourselves because this is not real. We got to be in a nightmare, because there's no way they would allow all this to happen. I mean, forcing you to celebrate gay pride. It's unheard of. You can't force me to worship something that's ungodly. You know? And it's hate speech if you say anything godly about the situations. Right? Mutilation of children. It's ungodly if you stand up for. You can't even counsel the children that have gender dysphoria. It's illegal.
You can't tell them that that there's anything wrong with them. You have
so,
to.
but what did God say? Lawlessness will abound, right?
Yeah.
In the 4 years when Democrats aren't in charge, lawlessness abounds. When they're in charge for 4 years, there's no lawlessness. There was a couple of peaceful Black Lives Matter protests, but there wasn't organized riots every single week, right? So they do have one successful campaign that they keep running. That's the No Kings, because thank goodness we don't have kings now. So I guess that worked, because now we don't have kings.
King Charles went home.
So, but this is the way Satan works, right? And when I turn on the news, all I'm seeing is Matthew chapter 24, right? Kids under 17 having mobs, street races. Jesus said this is the way it will be through Paul. Lawlessness will abound, right? There'll be earthquakes and famines and pestilence and
teenage mobs stealing and looting and rioting
and you
doing
know
stupid
when
stuff
you know it's finally over with, when Israel is at peace, and when the Antichrist signs a 7-year peace treaty with the people around them. Well, I'm seeing a lot of peace starting to come around that country that everyone hates. Again, Israel is God's time clock, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying the same thing, just like you said. Satan is here. Satan is pushing on Joseph. He's down in Egypt. He's doing his best to try to slip Joseph up and get him in trouble.
Yep. And throughout all this, even just where we just read, he's in prison. I have not read one scripture where Joseph complained to God. His heart probably said, I don't understand this, but I trust you. In that same sentence, I'm sure he said, I don't understand this, but I trust you. Because I'm being blessed even in prison. All right, so now,
You're sorry, I got you
oh
off
no,
script.
wait, so
Rabbit
now,
trail, right?
21 through 23, did
No, I did that. We're right up to 40 now. To,
okay, so
Genesis
40.
So you had a rabbit trail on your notes.
I did
And
have.
I'm sorry, I pulled you down another rabbit trail.
No,
so-
that's all right.
Like you just said, Joseph wasn't.
Hit pause
complaining
for
to
a
God.
second.
Yep, no problem.
So now I got the rabbit trail, thanks to Justin and getting me out of the memory lapse here.
That's
But
my fault.
there is no confusion on Joseph's part or an attitude of I don't know why all this is happening, Lord, because I believe that he has the same insight given to him that Paul had, where God told Paul, or Jesus Christ, the Lord told Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, right? Even though you're going through stuff, my grace is sufficient for you in 2 Corinthians 12:9. That makes it easier to get through. Now, we on the other side, we know that Joseph will survive all these persecutions and eventually save the whole nation of Israel by where God actually places him. Without him going through all this, he's never going to be ready to save the whole nation of Israel. But right now, he does not even know what's going to happen. God ultimately places him in the right spot, but it's not until he's about 39 years old. Now, we know he's about 18, so this is a good 20 years away before he gets to that spot. And then he'll finally be able to say at 39 years old to his brothers, I know that you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And I can see that in my own life when you're going through a difficult time. Let's say, the injury to my hand. That was 3 years worth of surgeries and painful physical therapy and pins and everything else. And going through it, it was, you felt helpless. You got one hand that ain't working, right? You got to relearn how to write and everything else. Coming around to the other side of it, when you're able to, function again with two hands, you kind of appreciate it so much more. When you're on crutches, and I know that you know what I'm talking about, and it's difficult to get up and go even to the restroom or make something to eat or whatever, when you get done with it, when you're healed, it's an enlightenment. It makes you feel fuller of appreciation. When you're able to do the normal things again that were causing you so much problems. We see it in the season change. When we see the springtime come about after a cold, brutal winter. Oh, it's so beautiful to be out there to pick the weeds and to rake the leaves and to mow the lawn, and it's just so refreshing. But why is it refreshing? Because we just came out of a rough winter, right? Or the beautiful fall days that are blowing a cool breeze on you after a scorching hot summer, right? Those are the appreciations that you get on the other side. But when you're in the middle of it, it's not always so easy. But God does give us that sense of, better days are ahead. Yes, on the other side, when we're called home, then this life that we had to endure here, or the life that Joseph has to endure in prison, will all be worth it, right? And that's what we keep our eyes on when we're going through these times of tribulations or persecution, to know that someday this short 70, 80, 90-year life will result in quadrillions and quadrillions of everlasting years of total bliss that will make this seem like an eye blink. So Joseph had a look towards the things that God gave him in his dream, where he knew someday that would happen. So now Genesis chapter 40 opens up where we get introduced to the butler and the baker. Just verse 1, please.
It came to pass after these things that the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their lord and the king of Egypt.
Right. So now, again, I want to identify Lord. Lord, capital L, or lowercase Lord, means master or ruler. Okay? Lord, capital Lord, means Jesus. And capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D is Yahweh or Jehovah. And most of the times it is the pre-incarnate Jesus. Okay, so there's three different lords in the Bible. One is just a master, right? David says, the Lord said to my Lord.
A landlord, the lord of the house, the lord of the manor.
Exactly.
The king.
So this is not deity, right? But if it's a capital L, then it's a name, and that name is Jesus Christ. And if it's all caps, that's the Old Testament Yahweh or Jehovah, the I Ams. 40 verse 2 through 4, please.
And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief butler and the chief baker. So he put them in the custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison, and the place where Joseph was confined. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them so that they were in custody for a while.
So the butler and the baker get thrown up in jail, the same jail that Joseph's in, and they actually fall under the overview of Joseph. 5 through 8, please.
Then the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream in its own interpretation. And Joseph came into them in the morning and looked at them and saw that they were sad. So he asked the Pharaoh's officers who were with them So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in the custody of his lord's house, saying, "Why do you look so sad today?" And they said to him, "We each have had a dream, and there is no interpreter of it." So Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, please."
So they came in distressed, it says, and saw that they were very sad. And this is where I have to once again remind us, as I reminded myself, we're in the Old Testament. Okay, so it wasn't just a nightmare that the butler and the baker had where they had a bad dream. This was a revelation in a dream that they knew must mean something, right? Like Joseph's dreams. And again, the Old Testament and the tribulation period, the 7 years of God's wrath, are supernatural times. And so the butler and the baker had a dream that they gave to Joseph that they knew had a meaning and was significant. And some of the examples that we have in Genesis that we have to know were true account facts. because of the times that were in the Old Testament, which we're not in. We don't have the occurrences of the supernatural, of God working miraculously and Satan being allowed to do certain things, demons being in people now during this 2,000 years to the extent that they did in the Old Testament, right? Because in the Old Testament, we, right through, from Genesis to Malachi, right through the first 100 years, 100 AD, those were all powerful occurrences that God made happen and allowed Satan to happen. And they will return again during the tribulation period, as we saw, right, with the demons being released from the bottomless pit, from men being cursed so that they couldn't die even though they wanted to for a period of, I believe it was 30 days, and from Satan calling down hail and brimstone, and from making the statue speak and all these things. But in the Old Testament, for example, the ground would open, right, and swallow up a whole tribe. The Red Sea, with a depth of up to 9,970 feet, would spread itself open, leaving dry ground at its base. These are all things that happen, truly happen. A man would defeat hundreds and even thousands using God's strength. A boy could slay a lion, a bear, and a 9-foot giant with a slingshot. The dead would be brought back to life. A donkey would speak. The earth, or time itself, would stand still, and the sundial would even turn back 10 degrees. These are things that happened in the Old Testament. A child would be born of a virgin, New Testament. An angel would intercede in a pending battle and wipe out 185,000 Assyrians. A large fish would be created to take Jonah on a Gilligan Island tour. Fire would engulf a bush but not consume it. Demons were everywhere. Miracles would be brought about by God's prophets, and sorceries were performed as God would allow. God would also more frequently and definitively speak to people with a human voice. We see this over and over again, speaking to the prophets, speaking to Moses, speaking to Abraham. Not always the same way. Some he spoke to in dreams. Some he spoke to by using his own hand and writing on the wall. Right? As he did in oh great, I forgot his name now. When he wrote on the hand, "You've been weighed and found insufficient. Today your life will be..." I'll think of it. God wrote with his own hand on the 2 tablets of stone. Right? And it goes on and on and on. But he also gave dreams. We saw that he gave Joseph a dream, a couple of dreams. We saw that he gave the butler and the baker a dream that was significant. And we will see that Pharaoh has a dream shortly to come. So it's not like the normal weird dreams that we have today where we wake up and go, man, that was weird, and it has absolutely no purpose. These were special times when God was working all over. We right now are living in the age of grace where the Holy Spirit is the restrainer. Okay, he's holding back all of this, and we saw that in Revelation when God finally allows, or Jesus Christ finally allows, the restrainer and the angels holding back the 4 winds to go ahead and release them, right? Or the bowl judgments and the other judgments when they're finally allowed to be back as it was in the Old Testament times. So once the church is removed, once the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, these days that we're living in, relative peace to these cataclysmic events, are all going to be gone. They're going to be over with. And then it's 7 more years, and then the earth is going to be done. Sin will be defeated. So when we're looking at the different accounts in the Bible, and we see that God is working big things, right? Lazarus is walking out of the tomb. It was, if you picture yourself during Jesus' day, and there was such thing as the Jerusalem Times, it would be a small article on page 3. Lazarus, Jesus brought Lazarus out of the tomb, and he's now back with his family after being dead for 4 days. That's the end of that article, because there was so much happening that was just another thing. So we have to understand that these were different times, and that's what makes it harder for us, right? To let people know when we talk about the God who parted the Red Sea. They can't fathom that this actually happened, but it did. All right, so these dreams were given to them by God, and Joseph said rightly, he said, all dreams are, especially these types of dreams, are all only identifiable by God, right? Because he's the one who made them happen.
Should I read his talking about the dream now? 9 through 11?
9 through 11, please, yeah.
Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, Behold, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was as though it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Then the Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand.
So the butler dreamed that he saw a vine with 3 branches, and they budded, and he took the grapes and made wine for Pharaoh. That was what his dream was all about. And 12 through 13, please.
And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Now, within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand according to the former manner when you were his butler.
So Joseph gives the interpretation from God, obviously, because he says in verse 8, do not interpretations belong to God? So God gives him the insight on what it means, and it means that he will be restored in 3 days, and he will be back serving Pharaoh by putting the cup in his hand. So now in 16 and 17, 14 and 15,
he keeps talking. The next part. Why don't I just read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But remember me when this is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that they should put me into the dungeon.
Right. So like you said, he kept on talking. But here what he did was he said, hey, listen, this is going to happen in 3 days, right? And he did it by complete faith because God gave him the interpretation. He knew it was going to happen. So he says, hey, listen, in 3 days, talk to Pharaoh for me, would you, or Potiphar or somebody, and let him know that I'm not here to my fault of my own. I'm innocent. And so he tells the butler, in 3 days, please mention me. And be an advocate for me, would you?
Don't forget about me.
Right. And so now we look at the baker And he's like, oh, man, that was a great one. All right, now I'll read mine.
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I also was in my dream, and there were 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of the basket on my head.
So, pretty simple. His dream had him carrying 3 baskets on his head full of all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh. But then he noticed that the birds were eating out of them, or emptying them out, eating them. So let's get the interpretation 18 through 19.
So Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within the 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you. Oh, boy.
Yeah, so not good news for you, right? Joseph tells him that the 3 baskets are also 3 days, but in his case, his head would not be lifted up in restoration, but lifted off by hanging. So just another indicator that getting thrown into the prison was just a temporary status. If you had done wrong to any one of the government officials, you were going to be executed. So, again, another testimony to the fact that Potiphar was convinced that Joseph was probably done unjustly, and that his wife probably had made up the whole thing.
Probably wasn't her first time trying to pull one over on the Potiphar.
Right, exactly. I mean, like I say, people who are evil don't turn evil from one day to the next. They practice at it. They put their time and effort into practicing being evil and perfecting the evilness. But it is one of those things where God is still with them, right? And the Lord not only is giving Joseph the peace that surpasses all understanding, but he's also talking to Potiphar in the meantime, impressing upon his heart, don't kill Joseph. Don't kill him. It wouldn't be right for you to kill him, right? What did God do with the pharaohs in Abraham and Isaac's case, right? When they said that their wives were their sisters. The same thing. God talked to the pharaohs and said, hey, this is what's going on, and you better make it right. So God will even talk to non-believers and have them do the right thing according to his will. It doesn't mean they're saved. It just means God can have anyone do anything that he wants them to do.
All right, so should I read what happens next?
Oh, one more example.
Yep.
Pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
Not only does he instruct his people to give the Israelites anything they ask for, but also to supply them with carts and livestock and everything that they'll need to make the tabernacle, right? The tent, with the gold and the silver and the purple linens and the rings and the shackles and the so that was all because God had him as a puppet do what he wanted him to do to supply the people Israel to leave. And then God also undid his heart again back to the way he was, to have him go and chase them so that he would be wiped out. So we don't have to ever think that God can't control the wicked. He actually controls the wicked more than we can ever imagine, right? Even Satan is a pawn.
Yeah, I mean, even if Satan was the one whispering into Pharaoh's ear, come on, you can't let him get away with this.
Right.
And then God's like, yeah, don't worry, I got it.
I got it.
I know what's going to happen.
Don't worry about it. I got it. All right.
All right, next one. So we're going to 20 and 22, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he had a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. Then he restored the chief butler to his butlership again, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them.
And so the exact occurrence of events happened exactly as Joseph had prophesied. And the reason why I say prophesied is because Joseph professed what God had said would happen, right? So prophecy is professing what God said would happen, right? And the last verse for today, 23.
Yep. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him.
Yes, God is in everything. And yes, all things work together for the good of those that love him. But it's not always in our timing, right? And so the butler forgot him. And we'll find out next week that it was for 2 years that he forgot him.
And unfortunately, the other guy lost his head, so...
And the other guy lost his head.
So now nobody knows what he did.
You know, in this case, it's not yet the perfect timing for Joseph to be set free. The butler forgot him, but God, like I say, our timing is rarely God's timing. But if Joseph would have been released right now, it wouldn't have been as fruitful as if he gets released in 2 more years, right? Moses got chased out of Egypt, or ran out of Egypt, because he got caught killing an Egyptian. And for 40 years, God was working on him as a shepherd out in Midian, right? Took 40 years for God to say the time is right. It doesn't happen in a week or 2. But we can be secured in the fact of knowing that God knows what he's doing. And so on those days when we say, oh, Lord, how much longer? Just rest assured that he's a man of his word. And when he says, my grace is sufficient for you, that we can hang on that and know that, okay, all right, I'm starting to feel edgy on this whole thing, but I know that you will cure my edginess so that I'm no longer worried about it, because that's what you will also do.
You know, and this is one of those examples, too. We were talking about this earlier. It's one of the stepping stones of God giving us some practice to show us, to lead us up to the next thing. This was just Joseph's practice at being confident in being able to interpret the dreams and listen and talk to God. So,
and we never know, right?
Yeah.
Like in Paul's case, Paul's thrown in prison. Well, some of his best ministry was in prison. Some of the most crucial people that he needed to approach were the Roman guards, who were untaught in all things God. So, you know, we might be saying, hey, can you pull this thorn in my flesh? Can you pull it out? And God's saying, I'm actually using it to do some miraculous things, right? Because if he wasn't imprisoned, that whole that whole Roman empire of guards that were watching over him and the prisoners that were listening to him speak would not have gotten anything.
All right, we'll pick it up next week.